After more than 40 years of unanswered questions, a decades-old mystery may finally be closer to resolution. The yellow 1980 Toyota Celica, belonging to Karen Schepers, who vanished in 1983, was recently pulled from the Fox River in Elgin, Illinois. Skeletal remains were found inside the submerged car, bringing a bittersweet sense of closure to her family. Karen was last seen on April 16, 1983. The 23-year-old computer programmer had spent the evening celebrating promotions with her co-workers at P.M. Bentley's Tavern in Carpentersville. Despite a lively night, Karen's mood turned somber when her boyfriend, Terry Schultz, declined to join the festivities. She left the bar shortly after 1 a.m. and was never seen again. Her sudden disappearance baffled investigators and devastated her family. Her father, Lauren Schepers, an airline pilot, desperately searched from the sky, flying over the Elgin area in hopes of spotting his daughter's distinctive yellow car. Despite their efforts, neither Karen nor her vehicle were found. The investigation turned cold, reopening occasionally over the decades. In 2008, authorities launched a billboard campaign and conducted sonar searches in nearby bodies of water. However, no evidence surfaced. It wasn't until March 2024 that a breakthrough finally occurred. Working alongside Elgin Police, the nonprofit group Chaos Divers used advanced sonar technology to locate the car deep in the Fox River. Divers confirmed the vehicle's identity through its license plate. Once recovered, skeletal remains were discovered inside, now undergoing forensic analysis by the Kane County Coroner's Office. "It adds more questions than it answers," said Karen's brother, Gary Schepers. "We've been pushing against a brick wall for 42 years, and now it's starting to give." While finding Karen's car brought some closure, the family remains in anguish, wondering how it ended up in the river and what transpired that night. The case's resurgence is partly credited to the Elgin Police Department's podcast, Somebody Knows Something, which reignited public interest and generated fresh tips. Investigators hope forensic advances will provide definitive answers about Karen's fate. After 4 decades of uncertainty, the Schepers family clings to the hope that the truth will finally emerge, bringing the justice and peace Karen has long deserved.
What's up, everyone? Tony from the Cold Case Project, back again. And today, what I want to run with you over is all content shared in these videos is readily available in any Google search. Now, with that said, I take this content, have it rewritten, and upon rewriting it, put it in these videos to spread the word on the thousands and thousands of cold cases of men and women throughout the United States that are just forgotten, and I give this platform to them so their cases and their stories can be told. Now, in addition to that, if you look down below in the description, you're going to see some brand new t-shirt and coffee cup designs I've actually gotten from couple of my subscribers who have over the years have been giving me some awesome fan art. So with that said, I'm offering a 20% discount code down below if you check that out, and splitting proceeds with them because they're awesome. Been watching me for quite some time, and I definitely think they deserve to be rewarded for some of the work they do on top of being full-time employees also. So, once again, if you have any recommendations or any suggestions, comment down below. Thank you so much for watching. Enjoy the video. Like, subscribe. I'm out. Peace.
Henry Wilson was last seen with his wife, Christy Wilson, in Monterey, Tennessee, at 8 p.m. on May 9, 2018. Henry had picked Christy up from her aunt's house, and later that night, the couple stopped at Tom's Market to buy cigarettes. This was the last confirmed sighting of them. They were driving a charcoal gray 2001 Nissan Sentra with Tennessee license plate number 310 DVD. The car had sun-damaged paint, damage to the rear bumper, and bad tires, making it distinct and easily recognizable. The following morning, Henry's cell phone pinged off a tower in Fentress County. Christy's phone later pinged in Overton County near Coy Phillips Road. Despite extensive searches in these areas, authorities found no sign of the couple. Although their marriage had its challenges, there was no evidence to suggest that one spouse had harmed the other. Friends and family confirmed that while the couple argued occasionally, nothing indicated violence between them. Christy was receiving disability benefits, and Henry worked as a day laborer. Financially, they struggled, but Christy's family said she had plans to return to work soon. Additionally, Christy's disability check was left in their mailbox, reinforcing the belief that they did not voluntarily leave without notice. Despite Henry's known drug use, his daughter described him as a great dad who never went long without contacting his family. Similarly, Christy had close ties with her family and would not have disappeared without explanation. Their sudden vanishing raised immediate suspicions. For months later, in September 2018, a grim discovery was made. The Wilsons' Nissan Sentra was found at the bottom of a ravine off Hanging Limb Highway in Overton County, approximately 30 miles from Monterey. The car had been there for months, so long that vegetation had begun growing around and inside the vehicle. Despite this breakthrough, there was no sign of Henry or Christy. With the couple still missing, authorities pursued several leads. The Wilsons' families hired a private investigator who put forth a theory that Henry and Christy were killed in a drug deal gone wrong. The investigator alleged that Henry had been involved in a confrontation with a suspect over a drug-related dispute. During the altercation, the suspect supposedly shot Henry. According to this theory, Christy was then killed to eliminate her as a witness. However, without concrete evidence, this remains speculation. No arrests have been made, and no suspects have been publicly identified in connection with the Wilsons' disappearance. Law enforcement continues to treat the case as a homicide investigation, with foul play strongly suspected. Alicia Deanna Walker, a 23-year-old mother from Nashville, Tennessee, spent the evening of November 19, 1999, like any other Friday. She dropped off her 2-year-old son, Rayvon, at her sister Lakeisha's house in the 900 block of Gale Street, telling her she planned to drive to Murfreesboro the next morning to get a repair estimate for her car. Before leaving, Alicia called her father, Sidney Walker, between 9:30 and 10 p.m. Their conversation was normal, nothing seemed amiss. But that would be the last time anyone in her family ever heard from her. When Alicia didn't return for Rayvon the next day, Lakeisha grew worried. Alicia was a devoted mother. She always checked in. Lakeisha went to her sister's apartment in the 3800 block of Edwards Avenue and found the lights on and the stereo blaring. She turned off the music and left, assuming Alicia had stepped out briefly. But by Sunday, November 21st, Alicia still hadn't shown up. Her family returned to her apartment and, finding no sign of her, called the police. Detectives searched Alicia's home and found the clothes she had been wearing the day she vanished. Her heart medication was still there, a red flag, since she needed it daily. Neighbors reported hearing Alicia arguing with an unidentified man in her driveway that night. Was this a stranger? A friend? A lover? No one knew. Her maroon, 1995 Oldsmobile Achieva was also missing. The car had a long scratch on the driver's side, a possible clue, but one that led nowhere. Alicia worked at Peterbilt Motors Company and had recently moved into her own apartment. She was private but responsible, her family insisted. She never would have left Rayvon behind. For years, her family searched, put up flyers, and begged for answers. But as time passed, leads dried up. 17 years later, Alicia's mother, Wanda Walker, would also vanish under suspicious circumstances. Though police say the cases aren't connected, the coincidence is haunting. Larisha's son, Rayvon, grew up without his mother. Now an adult, he still waits for answers. If you have any information about Larisha Walker's disappearance, contact the Nashville Police Department. By October 2016, the Walker family had endured 17 years of unanswered questions about Larisha Deanna Walker's disappearance. Wanda Walker, Larisha's mother, had become the family's rock, a retired schoolteacher working part-time at Dollar Tree, beloved by her grandchildren who called her Gigi. At 60 years old, Wanda shared a home with her cousin in Nashville's 1400 block of 11th Avenue South, living what appeared to be a quiet, normal life despite the shadow of her daughter's unsolved case. Wanda began her Wednesday like any other workday. She left her home in her silver Nissan Altima around 10:30 a.m. for her shift at the Dollar Tree on Franklin Pike, just 2 miles away. But her car began overheating near the intersection of 12th Avenue South and Edgell Avenue. At 10:45 a.m., Wanda called her boyfriend for help. He arrived promptly, adding coolant to her vehicle. In a later interview, he described Wanda as calm but frustrated about the car trouble. After ensuring the car was operational, the two parted ways, Wanda continuing toward work, her boyfriend heading home. This would be the last confirmed sighting of Wanda Walker. When Wanda failed to show up for her 11:30 a.m. shift, co-workers grew concerned. She was never late, never missed work without calling, her manager told investigators. By evening, when Wanda hadn't returned home or answered her phone, her cousin alerted family members. For the Walker family, the déjà vu was horrifying. Larisha's son Rayvon, now 19, recalled getting the call. My aunt said, "We haven't seen Gigi all day." My stomach just dropped. Not again. Not our family again. On October 6th, Wanda's daughters launched their own search, retracing her possible routes and visiting the Dollar Tree. Co-workers confirmed Wanda never arrived for her shift. The family filed a missing persons report that afternoon, triggering an official investigation. Detectives immediately noted troubling similarities to Larisha's case. Both women disappeared in broad daylight. Both left behind all personal belongings. Both cases involved their vehicles, however. Police maintained there was no evidence connecting the two disappearances. 8 days after Wanda vanished, her daughter Alicia made a gut-wrenching discovery. While canvassing neighborhoods near Wanda's home, she spotted her mother's Nissan Altima parked in an alley in the 1000 block of Wade Avenue, less than a mile from where Wanda had car trouble. The scene was deeply unsettling. The car was locked with no signs of forced entry. Wanda Spurs sat inside, containing her wallet, ID, and cash. A significant amount of blood stained the back seat. Privet shrub leaves were scattered throughout the vehicle. Neighbors reported the car had been there since October 6th, meaning it was parked just 1 day after Wanda disappeared. Yet no one reported seeing who left it there. The blood was confirmed through DNA testing to be Wanda's. Forensic analysts determined the blood spatter pattern suggested a violent struggle. The amount of blood indicated life-threatening injuries. Privet leaves matched shrubs growing near the alley. Detectives theorized Wanda encountered someone she knew after a car trouble. This wasn't random, lead investigator Detective Filter stated. She likely trusted whoever harmed her. In a heartbreaking 2017 interview with News Channel 5, Lakeisha Walker fought back tears. "We lost my sister. Now my mom? How does this happen to one family?" The family distributed thousands of flyers and organized search parties, clinging to hope despite the grim evidence. Wanda's granddaughter made an emotional plea. She was loud, loving, and the heart of our family. Somebody knows something. Please, just tell us where she is. In October 2021, the FBI joined the case, announcing an $11,000 reward for information. At a press conference, Special Agent Matthew Foster revealed, behavioral analysts created a profile of the likely suspect. Evidence suggested Wanda was killed shortly after her disappearance. Someone in the community was protecting the perpetrator. The blood evidence tells us this wasn't just a disappearance, Foster stated. This was a homicide. While authorities insist the cases aren't connected, the similarities haunt the Walker family. Today, nearly 8 years after Wanda vanished, the Walkers continue their fight for justice. Larisha's case remains cold, while Wanda's investigation stays active. Ray Vaughn, now in his mid-20s, summarizes the family's torment. First my mom, then my grandma. I grew up without them. Somebody out there knows what happened. We just want to lay them to rest. If you have any information about Wanda Walker's disappearance, contact the Nashville Police Cold Case Unit at 862-7329 or the FBI at 1-800-CALL-FBI. $11,000 reward remains for information leading to resolution in this case. Alicia Waters was last seen in Murfreesboro, Tennessee, on April 10, 2015. Severely physically and mentally disabled, Alicia had been cared for by her parents, Florence Elaine Waters and Charles Waters, for her entire life. Alicia had a trust fund exceeding $1 million established from a medical malpractice settlement to cover her lifelong care. Her parents, as her primary caregivers, were eligible to receive up to $9,000 per month from the account. However, reports emerged suggesting misuse of the funds. Allegations included claims that the Waters used trust money for personal luxuries, including the construction of a swimming pool. As concerns mounted, the court appointed a Murfreesboro attorney as Alicia's conservator, overseeing the management of her finances. For over a year, Florence and Charles attended monthly hearings at Rutherford County Chancery Court. During this time, they became increasingly evasive and hostile. Court officials were denied access to Alicia. An attempt to monitor her well-being were obstructed. Then, without warning, the couple sold their Murfreesboro home and relocated, leaving only a forwarding address in Duluth, Georgia. After their move, the Waters ceased withdrawing money from Alicia's trust fund. Additionally, the couple had not collected any of Alicia's Social Security disability payments since 2006. The Social Security Administration had previously questioned how those funds were being spent, leading to further scrutiny. In January 2017, the court issued a warrant for Florence Waters' arrest, demanding she appear to explain why she should not be held in contempt for failing to disclose Alicia's whereabouts. The family's continued refusal to cooperate only deepened fears for Alicia's safety. Later that year, a Georgia News crew located Charles Waters at the Duluth address. While he admitted his identity, he remained evasive about Alicia and Florence's location. He initially claimed they were in Tennessee, but quickly retracted the statement. Though he insisted Alicia was alive and receiving care, neighbors reported never seeing anyone in a wheelchair at the property. Authorities remained deeply concerned, struggling to find a logical reason why Florence and Charles would forfeit the substantial monthly payments from Alicia's trust fund. With the couple refusing to cooperate, speculation about the worst-case scenario has grown. Investigators suspect foul play, though without Alicia's body or evidence of harm, definitive answers remain elusive. Alicia's parents no longer have legal custody of her. The court continues to offer a reward for information that could lead to Alicia's discovery. Despite extensive efforts, including searches and public appeals, Alicia's fate remains unknown. Law enforcement and advocacy organizations urge anyone with knowledge of Alicia's whereabouts to come forward. Elizabeth Vaughn was last seen in Gallatin, Tennessee, on June 18, 1992. She had recently moved into an apartment in Hendersonville, Tennessee, with her young daughter and would regularly drop the child off at her mother's house while she worked. On the day of her disappearance, Elizabeth's estranged husband of 8 years, Bruce M. Vaughn, picked up their daughter from Elizabeth's mother's house and took her to his own home in White House, Tennessee. Elizabeth called her cousin that day, mentioning she was heading to White House to pick up her daughter. That was the last confirmed contact anyone had with her. Bruce claimed Elizabeth did arrive at his home that evening, but after a heated argument, she supposedly left. According to him, she said she was going to get gas and dinner before returning to her apartment. She had plans to visit her cousin afterward, but never showed up. Concern quickly grew when Elizabeth failed to make any further contact. She was known as a responsible and caring mother who would never voluntarily abandon her child. 2 days later, on June 20th, Elizabeth's blue 1991 Ford Tempo was found abandoned outside O'Carly's restaurant on 2 Mile Parkway at the Rivergate Mall in Goodlettsville, Tennessee. This location was approximately 25 miles from her last known whereabouts. While one restaurant employee recalled seeing a woman resembling Elizabeth sitting alone at the bar on the night she disappeared, others contradicted this claim, stating they hadn't seen her. Authorities soon suspected the car's placement was a deliberate attempt to mislead the investigation. A witness later reported seeing a woman matching Elizabeth's description outside O'Carly's around 11 p.m. on June 18th. The witness claimed she got into a red 1980s pickup truck with a man who had shoulder-length red hair, a beard, and distinctive white spoke wheels. The truck also had chrome running boards and a toolbox. Despite efforts to track down this man, no conclusive evidence emerged from the sighting. Elizabeth and Bruce's marriage had been fraught with tension. Although they had separated, Bruce was allegedly unwilling to accept the end of the relationship. Elizabeth had recently begun seeing a married co-worker and had initiated divorce proceedings against Bruce. According to her cousin, Bruce did not want a divorce and made threats of suicide if Elizabeth went through with it. Additionally, he would frequently call her workplace, threatening to show up unannounced. Following Elizabeth's disappearance, Bruce's behavior raised further suspicion. He quickly retained an attorney and refused to cooperate with the investigation. Investigators noted inconsistencies in his accounts of the night Elizabeth went missing. In one statement, he claimed she left his house at 8 p.m., while in another version, he said she left sometime after 9:30 p.m. Despite these discrepancies, there was no physical evidence to tie him directly to her disappearance. Elizabeth's mother, however, stood by Bruce, publicly defending him and expressing disbelief that he could harm her daughter. Meanwhile, investigators grew increasingly convinced that Elizabeth had fallen victim to foul play. The discovery of Elizabeth's vehicle further deepened the mystery. Investigators meticulously searched the Ford Tempo for evidence, but found no clear indications of foul play. The location where it was found, a busy mall parking lot, seemed calculated. Police theorized the car had been abandoned there to divert attention from the actual crime scene. Authorities continued to follow up on the sighting of the red pickup truck. The man with the distinctive truck remains unidentified, and no evidence has confirmed whether he was involved in Elizabeth's disappearance. Despite exhaustive efforts, Elizabeth Vaughn remains missing, and her case has grown cold. Over the years, detectives have re-examined evidence and pursued leads, but no definitive breakthroughs have been made. Her family continues to hope for closure, while investigators believe she was most likely the victim of homicide. The investigation remains open, and authorities continue to seek justice for Elizabeth Vaughn. On the morning of February 19, 2007, the sun rose over Memphis, Tennessee, just as it had every other day. But for Ricarda Tillman Lockett, a 22-year-old mother and member of the Winnebago tribe, this would be the last morning anyone would ever see her alive. Ricarda had been working as a waitress at Jillian's restaurant in downtown Memphis. Those who knew her described her as the life of the party, a vibrant young woman with a bright smile and an even brighter future. She was a devoted mother to her 11-month-old son, a woman who took her responsibilities seriously. That's why when she didn't show up to pick up her baby from the babysitter that afternoon, everyone who knew her immediately knew something was terribly wrong. The last person to see Ricarda was her estranged husband, Lou Lockett. Co-workers watched as she climbed into his vehicle after her shift ended around 10 a.m. What happened next depends entirely on whose story you believe. Lou would tell police 2 different versions, first claiming he dropped Ricarda off at a domestic violence shelter, then later saying he took her to their shared home. The shelter staff confirmed she never arrived. And if she had gone home, why were all her personal belongings, her purse, her phone, everything she would never leave without, still there? The red flags have been waving for months, ignored by those who should have seen them. Just 3 weeks before her disappearance, police had been called to the couple's home after Lou strangled Ricarda during an argument. When officers arrived, they found Lou sitting calmly in his car with a loaded 9mm handgun in the glove box. He was arrested, but the charge was simple assault, not the felony strangulation charge that might have kept him behind bars and potentially saved Ricarda's life. Those close to Ricarda knew the truth she had been too afraid to say out loud. She had told police at least 3 times that Lou had threatened to kill her. She had confided in her father about her terror, especially as she prepared to leave the marriage for good. A protective order was in place, yet somehow Lou was still able to pick her up from work that final morning without consequence. In the days following her disappearance, the cracks in the system became canyons. While Ricarda's family fought for answers, Lou's behavior grew more suspicious. He was heard telling people Ricarda was already dead before any evidence could confirm this. Then came perhaps the most chilling twist of all. Years later, Lou would publish a book titled If M Was O and B, which he claimed was about mafia crime. But passages obtained by Ricarda's family described in graphic detail how to dispose of a woman's body using acid, how to make someone vanish without a trace. Lou was interviewed, but never treated as the prime suspect he should have been, the violent, estranged husband, the last person to see her alive, the man with multiple conflicting stories. The greatest injustice may have come in the custody battle for Ricarda's son. Initially, the boy was placed with Ricarda's family, with the judge explicitly citing Lou as a danger. But just 8 months later, in a decision that defies all logic, a different judge returned the child to the man many believe murdered his mother. Today, Ricarda's case remains officially unsolved. Her mother, Francesca, still holds out hope that one day her daughter's remains will be found and properly laid to rest. In 2017, there was a brief moment of hope when unidentified remains in Oklahoma were tested against Ricarda's DNA, but it wasn't her. If you have any information about Ricarda's disappearance, please contact the Memphis Police Department or the National Missing and Unidentified Person System. The story of Grant Solomon's untimely death is one that continues to haunt those who have examined the evidence and circumstances surrounding that fateful July morning in 2020. To fully understand the depth of this tragedy and the many unanswered questions that remain, we must begin at the beginning, examining every detail with care and attention to how these events unfolded in real time. Grant Solomon was an 18-year-old baseball player from Franklin, Tennessee, known for his talent on the field and his kind, determined spirit. Those who knew him describe a young man full of promise, someone who worked tirelessly to improve his game while maintaining good grades and strong friendships. His life appeared normal on the surface, but behind closed doors, Grant and his younger sister Gracie had allegedly endured years of abuse at the hands of their father, Aaron Solomon, a former sports reporter with connections throughout their community. On the morning of July 20th, 2020, Grant left his home at 7:37 a.m. in his white 2015 Toyota Tacoma pickup truck, heading to baseball practice at the Ward Performance Center in Gallatin, about 50 minutes away. Security footage from along his route shows him stopping for gas, appearing relaxed and cheerful as he interacted with the cashier. Friend would later recall that Grant had been in unusually good spirits that morning, excited about new opportunities that came with recently turning 18 just 2 weeks prior. This milestone was significant because it meant Grant could now legally challenge his father in court regarding the alleged abuse he and his sister had suffered. According to phone records and witness statements, Grant arrived at the practice facility between 8:30 and 8:40 a.m. His father, Aaron Solomon, was already there waiting, something multiple witnesses noted as unusual since Aaron didn't typically attend these early morning sessions. Aaron later told police he remained in his own vehicle while Grant went about his pre-practice preparations. At 8:44 a.m., Aaron made a 911 call that would become the foundation of the official story. His account was that while checking work emails in his car, he suddenly noticed Grant's truck was no longer parked beside him. He claimed to have then witnessed the horrific scene of the Tacoma rolling backward, striking Grant, and dragging him 60 feet before coming to rest in a ditch with Grant pinned beneath. But the recording of that call reveals disturbing inconsistencies that have led many to question the official narrative. Aaron's voice remains eerily calm throughout the call, with long pauses where one would expect panic or desperate urgency. He provides unnecessary details about the truck's make and model, while failing to convey the appropriate level of distress one would expect from a father witnessing his son being crushed by a vehicle. At several points, he says, "Oh my God," in a tone that sounds performative rather than genuinely distraught. Experienced 911 operators and law enforcement professionals who have analyzed the call have noted it doesn't match the patterns of genuine emergency calls where a loved one is in mortal danger. When first responders arrived, just 4 minutes later, they found Grant still trapped beneath the truck's weight. But 3 men Aaron claimed were present assisting had mysteriously vanished. No witnesses ever came forward to corroborate Aaron's version of events, and to this day, the identities and whereabouts of these alleged helpers remain unknown. This absence of corroborating witnesses is particularly suspicious given that the parking lot was at a sports training facility where one would expect multiple people to be present at that time of morning. The physical evidence from the scene tells a story dramatically different from Aaron's account. First, the truck's behavior defies basic physics and mechanical principles. The Tacoma was found securely in park, with no mechanical issues that could explain an unintended roll. Independent automotive experts who later examined similar model trucks testified that the parking mechanism was extremely unlikely to fail in the manner described, especially on the slight incline of that parking lot. The grade was measured at less than 5 degrees, insufficient to cause such movement without some mechanical failure. Yet multiple examinations found the transmission in perfect working order with no signs of malfunction. Grant's injuries present another series of troubling inconsistencies. Medical examiners noted several findings that don't align with being dragged 60 feet beneath a vehicle. Most notably, there was no road rash or burns from being dragged across hot asphalt on a 90-degree day. His clothing showed minimal damage when it should have been shredded to ribbons. A gold chain around his neck remained perfectly intact despite supposedly being dragged beneath a 4,000-pound vehicle. His cell phone, which should have been utterly destroyed if crushed by a truck, showed only a single deep puncture wound to the screen, the kind that might come from being struck with a sharp object rather than run over. Perhaps most disturbing are the blood evidence patterns found at the scene. Investigators discovered a bloody rock in the ditch near Grant's body that was never properly analyzed. His glasses were found placed neatly on the sidewalk, not where he supposedly fell and was dragged. Blood spatter patterns suggested blunt force trauma may have occurred before contact with the truck, indicating Grant might have been attacked before the incident with the vehicle. The context surrounding Grant's death makes these inconsistencies even more troubling. Friends report that in the weeks before his death, Grant had compiled evidence of abuse and planned to testify against his father now that he was legally an adult. He had allegedly discovered disturbing material on Aaron's computer related to underage girls at Grace Christian Academy, where Aaron was involved. On the morning of his death, Grant told his mother Angie in a hushed phone call, "I don't want to die in Gallatin today," words that now seem chillingly prophetic. The mishandling of the investigation reveals a pattern of institutional failure that borders on criminal negligence. Police closed the case as accidental within 1 hour of arriving on scene, an astonishingly short time frame for a death investigation. No forensic examination was conducted of Aaron's phone or email records to verify his claim about checking work emails. Crucial evidence like the truck was released to Aaron and later destroyed at a junkyard before proper independent examination could be completed. The medical examination was equally problematic. No autopsy was performed at Aaron's insistence. Despite state laws, that typically require them for accidental deaths. Critical tests like toxicology screens were skipped. Hospital staff later reported unusual pressure from unknown parties to declare the death accidental without proper investigation. The community's complicity in this tragedy extends beyond law enforcement. Multiple prior abuse reports to Child Protective Services were mysteriously lost or dismissed without proper investigation. Grace Christian Academy staff allegedly ignored multiple warning signs about Aaron's behavior. Local media, where Aaron had professional connections, conspicuously downplayed the story, running only brief mentions of a tragic accident without any investigative reporting. Today, while Grant's life was tragically cut short, his sister Gracie's survival represents hope for justice. After enduring years of alleged abuse at Aaron's hands, Gracie is now safe with her mother Angie. But the battle continues as Aaron is currently appealing for custody of Gracie, using his connections and resources to continue harassing the family through the legal system. Key evidence continues to mysteriously disappear, and witnesses report being intimidated into silence. The Solomon family desperately needs support from those who believe in justice. Financial assistance is needed for Angie's ongoing legal battles and to fund independent investigations. Public pressure must be maintained on Tennessee officials to reopen the case for proper review. Most importantly, anyone with information about Grant's death or Aaron's activities must come forward, no matter how insignificant they think their knowledge might be. Grant Solomon's case represents more than just another suspicious death. It's a microcosm of how power, privilege, and systemic failures can conspire to deny justice. The mountain of contradictory evidence demands answers to critical questions. Why was the investigation rushed? Why was evidence destroyed? Why do authorities continue to ignore glaring red flags? As we remember Grant, not just as a victim, but as a talented athlete, a loving brother, a young man with dreams, we must commit to seeking the truth. His story isn't over until those responsible are held accountable and the systems that failed him are reformed. The fight continues. The truth will come out. And when it does, Grant Solomon will finally get the justice he deserves. For more information, evidence documents, and ways to help, visit Justice for Grant. Calm. Isaac Seavoy and his younger sister, Rebecca Seavoy, disappeared from Franklin, Tennessee on August 11, 2009. The siblings, just 8 and 6 years old at the time, were abducted by their non-custodial mother, Noriko Asaki Seavoy. Noriko, who was 37 years old then, is described as being of Japanese descent, standing 5 feet 8 inches tall and weighing around 112 pounds, with black hair and black eyes. Following the children's disappearance, a felony warrant for parental kidnapping was issued for Noriko on August 17, 2009. Isaac and Rebecca's father, Christopher J. Seavoy, is an American citizen with a complex international background. After spending years in Japan, where he had obtained Japanese citizenship, Christopher returned to the United States following his separation from Noriko in 2007. Despite their separation, Noriko followed him to the U.S., and though they no longer lived together, their legal entanglements continued. The divorce was finalized in the United States, and Christopher remarried. However, Japanese law did not recognize the divorce, and Christopher and Noriko were technically still considered legally married in Japan. After the divorce in America, both parents agreed to remain in Tennessee and co-parent the children. According to the custody arrangement, Noriko received an $800,000 settlement, along with significant alimony and child support payments. The agreement also stipulated that Christopher would have the children for 180 days a year, while Noriko retained primary physical custody. Each summer, Noriko was permitted to take the children to Japan for a 6-week vacation. Despite these clear terms, trouble quickly emerged. Almost immediately after the custody agreement was finalized, Noriko expressed her desire to return to Japan permanently with Isaac and Rebecca. She argued that the children were losing their Japanese heritage and adapting too fully to an American lifestyle. Christopher, concerned that Noriko might act on these sentiments, filed for a restraining order to prevent her from taking the children to Japan outside of the agreed-upon vacation period. However, Noriko contested the restraining order in court. Despite Christopher's worries, the judge ruled in Noriko's favor, permitting her to take the children to Japan for their scheduled summer trip. She promised to return with them at the end of the vacation, as stipulated in the custody agreement. True to her word, Noriko brought Isaac and Rebecca back to Tennessee at the end of their summer stay. But while in Japan, she had secretly enrolled the children in Japanese schools and laid the groundwork for a permanent relocation. Unbeknownst to Christopher, she had also shipped most of her belongings, as well as the children's possessions, to Japan. Additionally, she transferred all her funds from her American bank accounts to Japanese accounts, further securing her move. As the 2009 school year commenced, Christopher was shocked to discover that his children had not returned to their Tennessee school. Noriko had taken Isaac and Rebecca and fled to Japan, violating both the custody agreement and a court order. In the aftermath of the abduction, the family court in Tennessee responded swiftly. Christopher was granted sole custody of the children. However, with Noriko and the children now overseas, the court's ruling held little weight. Japan's legal system often sides with Japanese citizens in custody disputes, especially those involving foreign parents. Unlike in the United States, Japan is not known for enforcing foreign custody rulings, making Christopher's battle all the more difficult. Desperate to reunite with his children, Christopher traveled to Japan in late September 2009, determined to bring them home. In an unexpected and emotional encounter, he managed to locate Rebecca and Isaac in rural Yanagawa, Japan, as they walked to school with their mother. Acting on impulse, Christopher took the children and drove nearly 50 miles to the United States consulate in Fukuoka, where he hoped to secure emergency passports and return them to the U.S. However, before Christopher could enter the consulate, Japanese authorities intervened. The police arrested him at the consulate gate, charging him with attempting to abduct the children. Christopher spent 17 days in a Japanese jail before being released. After his release, he had no choice but to return to the United States without his children. Since then, Christopher has had no contact with Isaac and Rebecca. The case quickly garnered international attention, with extensive media coverage both in the United States and Japan. Many sympathized with Christopher, viewing his actions as those of a father desperately trying to reunite with his children. Yet, despite the public outcry, no progress was made in returning Isaac and Rebecca to their father. Japanese law remains a significant obstacle, as the country has long been criticized for its handling of international custody disputes. In 2014, Japan became a signatory to the Hague Convention on the Civil Aspects of International Child Abduction, an international treaty designed to return abducted children to their country of habitual residence. However, the treaty does not apply retroactively to cases like Christopher's, leaving him with little legal recourse. Although Christopher holds on a hope that one day he will be reunited with his children, he fears that it may not happen until they are adults and can make their own decisions. For now, Isaac and Rebecca's whereabouts are known, but because they're not in the custody of their father, they remain classified as missing persons in the United States.